It was that time of year, just after winter, but just before spring. Those few weeks between the last frost and the really warm afternoons, when the bass are just beginning to move and you know it's time to get the boat in the water. No need to get fancy for the first trip of the season. A few six-packs in the cooler and some crankbaits will do it. Of course, Jake McDermott and his neighbor Rudy rarely had much luck this early in the year, but that didn't really matter. It always felt good just to get out on the lake after what Jake called the long indoor season. As much as anything, it was an excuse to get out of the house, to get away from it all, pop a few beers, and just plain relax. A lousy day of fishing, they both agreed, was still better than a good day at the office. They took their time working the shallows at the south end of the lake during the morning. The fishing was slow, but at least their cooler was full. It was only shortly after 2, but Jake was already working on his second six-pack. There was a touch of warmth in the afternoon air, but the water in the lake that day was still a bone-chilling 41 degrees. Jake was saving the best for last. A patch of flooded timber on the far side of the lake. It was natural bass cover, and over the years, he'd taken some nice fish right at the edge of the submerged trees. It was the kind of place that Jake felt was always worth one last cast.
I got one. I got one.
What do you got? What do you got?
Oh, I thought I had one.
What you snagged again? Oh, boy. Another tree fish.
Come on, get loose there.
Oh, boy. I gotta go all the way in there and get you unstuck now, or what?
Maybe I can throw it.
Hold on. Pull hard on it. That'll come loose.
Come on, it's not coming.
Jake McDermott drowned just a few yards from his capsized boat in about 8 feet of water. A tragic accident? Of course, they always are. But a freak accident? Far from it. In fact, everything about Jake McDermott's drowning, from where it happened to what caused it, is typical of the vast majority of fatal boating accidents that happen every year. If that sounds surprising, well, that's part of the problem. You see, contrary to popular belief, the typical accident doesn't involve a large offshore boat floundering in high seas and gale force winds. The circumstances in which most fatal accidents occur are far less dramatic. Instead of big water, the typical accident happens inland, on lakes and rivers, the small ponds and streams. And in more cases than not, it's the non-traditional boater who's involved. Fishermen, hunters, campers, people who are likely to be on the water in the spring or the fall months. And usually it's small boats, 16 feet or less, either with no motor or one of 10 horsepower or less. Almost half of all boating fatalities happen in broad daylight and in flat, calm conditions. And most of the time, the boat isn't even underway. Thanks, Jim. Of course, no two boating accidents are exactly alike, but in all too many cases, the common denominator is alcohol. In fact, 60% of all boating deaths are somehow alcohol-related. Part of the problem is that drinking while boating is almost a tradition. The one item you can bet will be on board is a cooler full of beer. But when out in a boat, the alcohol in just 2 or 3 drinks can significantly affect your balance, your vision, your judgment, and your ability to react quickly in case of an emergency. And don't for a minute fall for the myth that beer or wine is any less intoxicating than hard liquor. A can of beer or a glass of wine contain the same amount of alcohol as a shot of whiskey. It doesn't take much alcohol to affect your coordination, and even the slightest sense of unsteadiness can transform small boats like these into highly unstable and dangerous platforms. Under no circumstances should a boat be overloaded or overpowered, and a small boat is no place to stand up. If you have to change positions, keep a low profile and keep your weight centered toward the middle of the boat. Falling out of a boat is always an embarrassing and very often an unpleasant experience. But for the boater who's been drinking, an unexpected plunge could prove deadly. It may be hard to believe, but the inebriated person whose head is underwater can become so disoriented as to swim downward to their death rather than to the surface and safety. You know, the real tragedy of practically every boating-related drowning is that it could have been easily prevented. Wearing a personal flotation device, a PFD, is by far the single most important safety measure you can take when boating. It's a point we've been stressing for years and one that simply cannot be overemphasized. Look at it this way. Virtually every single boating-related drowning could be eliminated if the victim had been wearing a PFD. You know, as I look at the accident reports from around the country, it's frightening to note just how many took place in circumstances where there was no obvious danger. A fisherman casting on a quiet lake, a duck hunter setting out his decoys just a few yards from his blind. The fact is, the vast majority of boating accidents happen without warning, at times when they're least expected. Far too many people who use boats as part of their outdoor recreation simply don't realize how easy it is to get into serious trouble, to actually find themselves in life or death situations. If you don't think so, consider that more outdoorsmen die from drowning or cold water exposure than for any other reason. And in the younger age groups, drowning is the second leading cause of accidental death in the country. So if your outdoor sport involves boats, please take this advice to heart. Take the time to learn basic boat handling skills. Courses are available through your state or provincial agencies, as well as a number of private boating organizations. If you drink, you must understand that alcohol greatly increases your chances of having an accident. If you go out when the water is cold, be prepared and know what to do in case of an emergency. If you can't swim, take a course from your local YMCA or the Red Cross. But no one should ever be embarrassed to wear a PFD. It is by far your best defense against drowning. A few preventative measures, some basic safety rules, and some common sense. Nothing complicated, but it can go a long way towards saving your life.
Hello, I'm Ted Rankin, and welcome to Saved by the Jacket, a simple title that says it all. Personal flotation devices and life jackets save lives, pure and simple. They come in all shapes, colors, and materials. Some are designed for specific activities. Some are intended for colder water. Some are even made to keep you warm out of the water. But all of them can save your life.
Over the past decade, the popularity of boating has grown significantly. Today, there are over 12 million registered boats in the United States. Close to 80 million Americans across the country are boaters. Unfortunately, every year, some of these boaters will become statistics. They will lose their lives to drowning. Drownings that in many instances could have been prevented by one simple step: wearing a personal flotation device or life jacket.
Our program today will focus on people who did not become statistics, people who have a story to tell, people whose story will touch you, people whose story will move you, and more importantly, will make you think. These people owe their lives, or the lives of someone close to them, to PFDs and life jackets. So sit back and enjoy. The material we've put together may end up saving your life. Each year, thousands take to the water to enjoy British Columbia's natural beauty. And what started out as a routine cruising vacation for Reg Buxton and his family almost turned to tragedy.
To discover that your child is gone is just seemingly the worst thing that could possibly happen to you. So you're just terrified, absolutely terrified.
The fact that the child was in a personal flotation device gives us intellectually a little lift, because we know that there's a much better chance that we'll find this person.
Reg Buxton and his family chartered a 35-foot boat for a cruise along British Columbia's Inside Channel.
We had planned to take a holiday, a week's vacation, on a boat, which was a completely new experience for us. The boat that we chose to rent for our holiday was a trawler design, which means it has an aft cabin in the back and a steering station up top, so it's fairly open above, but yet enclosed, and it's quite secure. The children were required to wear flotation devices or life jackets all the time, whether they were inside the vessel, outside the vessel, anywhere they were.
Reg was at the wheel enjoying the cruise when the kids came to tell him that they were going into the cabin.
And they all went down there, and because they left it together, I assumed that they'd all stayed together. When they came back up, probably 10 minutes later, little David was not with them. So we immediately stopped to look for him, because when he wasn't with the rest of them, I wanted to know where he was, and we could not find him anywhere on the vessel. In words, I was terror-stricken, because you can only assume the worst. And we searched the vessel from one end to the other, which takes moments. As soon as we discovered that we could not find him anywhere, we radioed the Coast Guard. We radioed for help immediately.
We got a call from Comox Coast Guard radio station that they had received a call from a vessel, 35-foot pleasure craft, with a person overboard and missing. Our job at that point is to find out where it happened, try to narrow down when it happened, and then send resources to that area.
The Coast Guard advised us to return and search. Well, we turned about, and I got all the other kids up top with me in an area where they could see, and we just started retracing our steps to try and find him.
The first step in this case was to ensure that the radio station had issued a Mayday relay. That alerts all the vessels in the area to the situation. That's extremely important.
But it was just amazing how many people responded and how quickly they responded. It's amazing to know how much people will help you when you're in trouble. They found David probably within 5 miles of where we had discovered him to be missing.
A passing sailboat had spotted David in the water.
They told me that they could just see something red bobbing in the water, and they thought it was debris or flotsam of some sort. And until they got closer, they could not tell that it was actually a little boy.
With the assistance of a passing Coast Guard auxiliary vessel, David was returned to his anxious parents.
Once the child was recovered and we knew where the child was, we arranged for the child to be transported to a beach where the rescue helicopter could land.
We were overwhelmed. We were so happy to see him, his smiling face, because he was happy. By the time he got back to us, he was happy and smiling and moving around and frightened, but he knew he was okay.
You know, it's a fact. Most people don't expect to end up in the water. Accidents happen very fast, and there's little or no time to get your life jacket and put it on before you end up in the water. So, what if you ended up in the water with your life jacket in hand? You might think it would be easy to just put it on. Well, take a look at this.
We invited a group of volunteers to assist us in a little demonstration. The premise was simple. We asked everyone to jump into the pool and then tossed in enough PFDs for everyone. Our participants were all good swimmers, but they didn't have the time to practice, and they had no idea which PFD would fit.
To try and put this life jacket on the water, it was pretty hard because it's a lot smaller. I couldn't really get my arms through the holes and it wouldn't do up, so probably wouldn't do anything for me if I was in a real situation where I needed it.
What's very simple and easy on land becomes a struggle once you're in the water.
The jacket wants to float. It doesn't want to go down for you to get your arms into it. It's pretty difficult to get your arms in the water. I thought it would be a lot easier than it was. Yes, definitely.
The message was clear from all our participants. This was not as easy as it seems.
Yeah, I think it was way too tough to put on in the water to have to bother doing that after your boat's flipped over or something.
We should also point out the very obvious. This demonstration was done in ideal conditions. An indoor pool, warm and calm water. However, in real-life boat mishaps, the water is often cold and rough. It may be after dark, and people wind up in the water with little or no warning.
Our point, on the water it makes the most sense to wear your life jacket. But if you don't, and you do have to abandon ship, at least try to put it on first. Here's a little quiz. What's the first thing you should look for when shopping for a PFD or life jacket?
Style? Color? Well, those are good choices, but the first thing you need to look for is the Coast Guard approval label. This label certifies that the jacket has met minimum safety guidelines and that it will work as it was intended to keep you afloat when you need it. But simply checking for the approval label is only the beginning in shopping for the right PFD or life jacket. When it comes to life jackets and personal flotation devices, there's more choice than ever for boaters. The wide variety of options means that you can choose a flotation device that's designed for your specific type of on-the-water activity. While life jackets provide more flotation, PFDs are more comfortable and, as a result, are more popular with recreational boaters. And there's a PFD for almost every recreational boating activity. For the maximum in comfort and wearability, there are also inflatable life jackets on the market. Although there are some restrictions about their use, all of which can be found in the United States Coast Guard's federal requirements and safety tips for recreational boats, when it comes to a life jacket that can be comfortably worn at all times while aboard, it's hard to beat an inflatable. So with the variety of flotation devices on the market, there's no reason not to wear an approved life jacket or personal flotation device. And after you decide on the one that's right for you, make a wise choice. Choose to wear it.
Like many of the people you've met today, John Marchek has a story to tell. An experienced boater and an avid diver, John found himself in a situation that almost cost him his life.
Next thing I know, the tiller has cracked out of my hand and I'm airborne.
John Marchek was saved by his jacket. John had gone to his summer place on Ruxton Island off Vancouver Island to do some work before winter.
I started out too late in the day, and I knew that I had a couple of hours worth of work there, but I didn't factor in complications. So basically, by the time I was ready to come home, we're into dusk hours. I've got no running lights on my boat, and I needed to make a decision. Do I stay here, which is the sensible thing to do? It'd be a little cold, but I'd spend the night and head off in the morning.
John's decision was to get to the mainland, but his challenge will be to navigate through the in-water debris that's common to some areas of British Columbia's coastline.
I'm in my boat. All the debris from all off-coast British Columbia waters is in the water. Everything that's been on the shores for most of the year is launched. It's on the water.
When John started boating, he made a decision that would play an important part in the events of that evening. He chose the right PFD.
I wanted something that would give me maximum protection for the conditions that I was in. So I bought a Mustang bomber-style jacket. They're very comfortable. They're warm. They have Velcro sleeves that you can tighten down. I knew when I bought it, I'd wear it. Now it's dark because I've just spent the last half an hour picking my way through all this debris. I figured I had to move. There's no going back, so I opened up my boat and I'm really moving. Next thing I know, the tiller has cracked out of my hand, and I'm airborne. I had hit a dead head or something in the water, and my boat is now out of control, spinning around in circles, and I'm lying in the water, looking at it and going, this is going to be a very inconvenient night. Basically, I had two choices. I could go back to where I came from, or I could make my way, swim about, say, 2.5 miles to shore. So I decided to make my way towards the Vancouver Island mainland. The jacket has Velcro cuffs, and so I tightened the Velcro as tight as I could tighten it so that there would be no water moving into my sleeve. And I did that with both cuffs. The waist has an elastic cord, so I moved it down and tightened it as much as I could and zipped it up as high as it could go. So essentially what I did is I turned this flotation device into a wetsuit.
John was doing all the right things to help him survive. However, he was still very far from shore.
When I started feeling like there was no point to push myself any further, that it was close enough people would hear me, that's when I started to call. I had been in the water for probably about 1.5 hours, close to 2 hours at that point. I was cramping, I was hallucinating.
A citizen who had heard John parked his truck on the shoreline.
As soon as I saw the lights of that truck aimed out at sea, I knew that somebody was saying to me, we've heard you. You can't hear us, but we've heard you, and hang in there. About 15 minutes, maybe at the most 20 minutes after that, there was a small rowboat with a small engine on it, maybe a 8-horse, moving around with I could just see it off in the distance. I could just see a flashlight moving around on the boat, and they just kept moving around until eventually they were on a straight track to me, and at that time I knew I was okay. I made the choice to buy something that was fairly expensive at the time, but to spend that money really meant nothing in the end, because without it, I wouldn't be talking to you here today.
The people you've met today are proof that personal flotation devices and life jackets save lives. Through events and circumstances, these people were thrust into situations that could have ended in tragedy. They're here today because they were fortunate. They're here today because they wanted to share their story. The lessons that they've learned should be lessons for us all. It may be simple, maybe even trivial to those of us who have never experienced life and death situations. But to those that have, the message is clear. Personal flotation devices and life jackets save lives.
$25,000 mornings, give or take, is all we humans get. We spend them on treadmills, we spend them in traffic, and if we get lucky, really lucky, it dawns on us to go spend them in a world where a simple sunrise can still be magic. 25,000 mornings. Make sure some of them are pure Michigan. Your trip begins at michigan.org.
Alrighty, welcome back to 7 and 4 News Today. The Great Lakes are more than just beautiful bodies of water. They serve as reminders of great memories for people and families who vacation near them. In this week's May with Michigan Hands report, Megan Moore met with the owner of the Great Lakes Proud, a company that's doing their part to help preserve the Great Lakes and hold a special place of interest in our hearts.
All right, I am here with Austin Holsinger, the owner of Great Lakes Proud stickers that save the lakes. That's right. Very cool stickers here. The great thing about these, though, is that these are for a great cause. Tell me about what you do with these.
Well, that's right. We started the company to
give people, Michiganders, people around the Great Lakes, a way to give back, or a way to represent their pride and do good by giving back. And so we give a percentage of the proceeds right back to local organizations as well as regional organizations. Primarily, we're giving to organizations that work directly with the Great Lakes. So recently we've partnered with Shedd Aquarium and the Lions for the Great Lakes, which are two larger ones, regional. But we also like to work with local organizations that do the same thing, beach cleanups and that sort of thing.
How can people get in touch with you or get involved?
Yeah. You can find us on Facebook, just facebook.com/GreatLakesProud, or our website, which is just www.greatlakesproud.com. If you're interested in retailing the product, if you have a store and you'd like to retail the product in the coming summer months, just get a hold of me that way, or just like us on Facebook. We have a storefront there too. So you just put it on. There's a clear coat you put on, then you kind of rub it with the credit card license just to get it to adhere.
Okay.
And then you should just be able to. And there you go.
Look how cool that is.
Yeah.
And that can go on just about anything.
Anything. So you're just left with, just that vinyl sticker. Everything else, the majority of the time we see people that don't peel that plastic coat off, but when you do, it looks 100 times better. So
definitely. So you can go on the website.
Yeah, please do.
You can buy them there. Can they buy them anywhere else?
You can buy them at local retailers all over. So we have over 100 retailers all over the region right now.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Go out and get your sticker. Preserve the Great Lakes. Obviously, this is what this is all here for.
Yeah.
Great Lakes Proud. I'm here with Austin,
Yeah.
the owner. Thank you so much for being here,
Thanks so
Austin.
much. I appreciate it.
Very cool. Those stickers sell for $5 a piece. They can be purchased on their website. For more information on Great Lakes Proud, you can head to our website. We'll get some information posted at upnorthlive.com.
25,000 mornings, give or take, is all we humans get. We spend them on treadmills, we spend them in traffic, and if we get lucky, really lucky, it dawns on us to go spend them in a world where a simple sunrise can still be magic. 25,000 mornings. Make sure some of them are pure Michigan. Your trip begins at michigan.org.